Hi, book haul time again, and boy do I have some delights in store for you. We're going to take a little walk across London, and there will also be a little bit of shelf browsing in my local Oxfam. And if that's not for you, then you can just skip past it. I'll chapter it up. Okay, let's take our journey through London. I went to meet my mother in London to go for some very posh afternoon tea in Fortnum and Mason, which is basically a massive tourist trap on London's Piccadilly, and it was very, very civilised indeed, although eye-wateringly expensive. To make me feel better about that, I spent even more money on books, having arrived in London a couple of hours before I needed to meet my mother. Anyway, I walked, used my actual feet from King's Cross Station to towards Bloomsbury, and then on from there to Piccadilly. And on the way there, I went to Scoob Books, accidentally on purpose. I'll show you a brief 30-second, no more clip of the shelves there. They had quite a lot of science fiction / fantasy, 7 or 8 shelves worth in alphabetical order, which is always nice.
So these are the fabled science fiction and fantasy shelves of Scoob Books. I won't take you with me for my entire browsing journey because I don't have time to do that and browse, but I'll just give you a flavour. So there's one bookcase there, there's another one under there, some more over here, some kind of collections and anthologies and so on here. So it's pretty extensive offering. I mean, they're not charity shop prices, they're kind of used bookshop prices, so they'd be sort of £4 or £5 a book, I would think, depending on the condition. So anyway, let me have a look. I shall see you later.
And I found Master of Pax Wax, which sounds like a ridiculous name for a book. It's is the first of a duology, I believe. And whilst it's got a slightly silly name, I understand that it's actually quite a nice story, a good book. So I'll have to look out for the second one. But it's in this rather nice 80s / maybe early 90s era Grafton, or maybe late 80s. Let's see, 88, yeah, late 80s. So we'll see. And then also in Scoob Books, 3 C.L. Moore Golden Age in the Gollancz. It's sort of like the Gollancz Masterworks, only focused on 30s and 40s era science fiction. So we've got Doomsday Morning, which I think is not. I initially thought it was a short story collection, but it's not. I think it's a novel. Yeah, a novel. And I've also got Judgment Night, which again I think is a novel. Actually, I beg your pardon, it's not a novel. It is in fact a collection of 5 novellas, all of which were previously published in Campbell's Astounding Science Fiction magazine. So what does it say in here? Judgment Night balances a lush rendering of a future galactic empire with a sober meditation on the nature of power and its inevitable loss. The Code pays homage to classic Faust with modern theories and Lovecraftian dread. Promised Land and Heir Apparent both document the grim twisting that mankind must undergo in order to spread into the solar system. And Paradise Street shows a futuristic take on the old Western conflict between lone hunter and wilderness-taming settlers. Chosen by the author herself as the best of her longer-form writing, these stories show a gifted wordsmith working at the height of her talents. And then I've also got Jewel of Joyery, which is short stories, and I've heard other people waxing lyrical about these, including Matt at Science Fiction Reads, and also Steve Andrews over at Outlaw Bookseller. I don't know how many stories there are in here. There is no contents page. So they had 3, and there are 4, I think, in this Golden Age livery, and the other one being Northwest Smythe related. And so I've done a cheeky online order for that to complete the set. So that should arrive soon. And what else did I get in Scoob Books? I got Olivia Butler's Parable of the Sower. I have had Parable of the Talents for a little while, and that is the second of the 2 books. So I've had to wait until I could find this one. Now I have it, so I'll be able to read them. I've only read one Octavia Butler book, and that was Kindred, and that was truly excellent. And then the other books that I came away from Scoob with, volumes 3, 4 and 5 of Piers Anthony's Cluster series, and I got these because they were in very nice condition in large part. And that's volume 4, Thousand Star, and volume 5 is, I initially thought it said Vicious Circle, but no, it's Viscous Circle, so a gloopy circle of some kind. I don't have books 1 or 2, so they are a little bit useless to me. As you can see on the spines there, the middle one is in pretty nice condition, and the other 2 are a little bit yellowed with age, bits unfaded, if you can fade white. So I think I remember hearing that the cluster trilogy, it's not trilogy, the cluster series was pretty good. And then continuing my trip through London, I did a 10-minute walk to Bloomsbury, which is where the British Museum is, and just around the corner from there is an Oxfam bookshop that I've been to once or twice before. And they only have 2 or 3 shelves of science fiction / fantasy / horror, so there's not usually a lot there, and there wasn't this time either. But they did have 3 really nice condition hardbacks from various eras, which only one of which I was vaguely aware of. The other 2 are a bit potluck, so they may be of no intrinsic value whatsoever. But I have a nice Gollancz, I think from the 90s. Let's see. I'm aware I've just flashed that at you and then taken it away. Bear with. 1988, in fact, yeah. Skylords by John Brosnan in the slightly jazzier than usual Gollancz, and often a plain yellow cover. This has got a slightly sportier design, but that's in very nice condition. It's effectively as new. The text block's not faded, or not much, and it's in really nice condition. It cost me £2.49, something like that. Let's see. Centuries in the future, after the world has been devastated by the gene wars, the scattered remnants of humanity have to struggle against both the spreading biological blight on the ground and the great airships that dominate the skies. Controlled by feudal warlords, these mile-long dirigibles patrol their territories, exacting tribute from the ground communities. Any resistance to the Skylords results in a ruthless aerial bombardment. That actually sounds pretty good. And then Mary Gentle, Scholars and Soldiers, which is a collection of short stories, some of which are set in the same world as Golden Witchbreed and its sequel, which I haven't read yet. So it's not terribly helpful. But this is a rather handsome MacDonald hardback. It'll be from the, I don't know when, 80s maybe? 1989. Yes, this has got an introduction from the ubiquitous Neil Gaiman. It's easier to spot the books that he doesn't do an introduction for, to be honest. And then there are 9 short stories in here. The other book of Mary Gentle's that I've got is Ash, Secret History, which I really, really want to read, but it's 1,200 pages or something mental. So that's going to have to wait until I'm doing nothing for a couple of weeks. And then I've got an Ian Watson, which I think is perhaps more fantasy than science fiction. Gardens of Delight, in rather austere Gollancz fantasy livery. Green, not yellow. I don't know what this is about. Let's see. Well, shows what I know. Starship Shipperelli, searching for a colony founded by an earlier ship, lands on a mysterious planet, only to be immobilized by an outside force. Blah, blah, blah. Realizes that the luxurious landscape surrounding them with its great fruits and birds and naked celebrating people, hooray, is precisely that of the painting by Hieronymus Bosch. The painting, as Sean learns, has been landscaped thus for the original colonists by a god, who has also granted them a form of immortality and is part of the plan. But what is this god, and what is the plan, and who exactly originated it, and why? So it's got some trappings of science fiction, but it sounds like a sort of bit of a wild ride involving a mad Hieronymus Bosch painting. So those three were from the Oxfam bookshop in Bloomsbury. And then I walked for another 10 or 15 minutes towards my final meeting place with my mother in Piccadilly, and I hadn't realised when I got there 20 minutes early, but there's a Waterstones 2 or 3 doors down. Waterstones, for those of you in the US, is kind of, I suppose Barnes & Noble would be the nearest equivalent. It's most high streets in the UK have a Waterstones on them, large or small. And this one is enormous. It's the flagship store, I believe, and it's giant. It's on 5 or 6 floors. Each floor is enormous. And I didn't have too long to browse, but I was attracted by the poster on the door that said that they were having a clearance sale. So obviously my book bargain antenna were twitching by then. And downstairs in the basement, indeed, they had pretty significant departments worth of shelves of books, all significantly reduced, and certainly the ones that I looked at were £1 or £2 each typically. It took me a little while to find the science fiction and fantasy section, but it was there, and there were 5 or 6 maybe 3 or 4 bookcases, 6-foot sort of bookcases, mostly fantasy that clearly didn't sell terribly well, and wasn't interested in any of that. And there was a smattering of science fiction, quite a lot of it of no obvious value to me. So I was quite picky, even though they were only £1 or £2. But I did find this, which is The Ends by James Smythe, which is I think it's the 4th. Bear with. Yeah, it's the 4th of the Anomaly Quartet, and I have the first 2 of those in hardback. I did look for the books 3 and 4 in hardback, but unless they are hiding, I don't think they exist. I think they went straight to paperback. So I have the 4th one. It's in perfect condition. It cost me £1. As you'll see later on, I thought I couldn't live in a world where I had books 1, 2 and 4, but not 3. So I've ordered 3 online, and you may see that later. And then I found a book which I hadn't heard of, but was intrigued by. It's Glenn Cook, A Matter of Time, which again is in as new condition. Let's see, May 1975, St. Louis. In a snow-swept street, a cop finds the body of a man who died 50 years ago. It's still warm. July 1866, a teenage girl calmly watches her parents die as another being takes control of her body. August 2058, 3 political rebels flee into the past, taking with them a terrible secret. As past, present and future collide, one man holds the key to the puzzle, and if he doesn't fit it together, the world he knows will fall to pieces. It is just a matter of time. See what he did there. So that sounds, I like a bit of timey-wimey stuff, so I'm up for that. And then I found a Gary Gibson here of the Shoal trilogy, The Survival Game, which sounds like a bit of an end-of-the-world thing. The artifact destroyed an ancient civilization, but will they be next? Katya is a scientist working on a classified project for the Russian Empire, so already that's interesting. She's also desperate. Her bosses want to exploit her knowledge and send her on an incredible, dangerous mission, and she refuses. If she refuses, her father's life will be forfeit. Katya must retrieve an artifact that will grant new life to the dying Russian Tsar. She's therefore sent deep undercover on an alternate version of Earth to an American-controlled island. On the island, Katya and Jerry form an uneasy alliance, and they discover the artifact will call down terror from the depths of space, and yet Katya's superiors refuse to listen. So I don't know what's going on there. So that's an alternate history, possibly parallel world thing where there is such a thing as a Russian Empire. It is clearly dominant. I do like an alternative history, so that sounds good as well. So that concluded my trek across London last Sunday. And then I had a few things arrive in the post. The missing 2 Brian Staplefords sadly recently passed away. Rest in peace and all that. What's this one? Promised Land, which is book 3 of The Hooded Swan. I was missing that. And also Swan Song, which is book 6. So they're both very slender. I mean, all 6 of them together would be a substantial novel, but individually they're like 150 pages each, less than, in fact. Let's have a look. About 150. So these are in, pretty good. Somewhere between good and very good, I would have thought. They're not terribly faded, reasonably sharp looking still on the spine. And I got The Edge, which was the book 3 of the Anomaly Quartet I was speaking about just now, by James Smythe, matching livery with the other one. And that click that you heard is the universe snapping back into place now that I have the complete set. And also sent to me by a viewer, Aaron Ramsby, I plugged this on a weekly update video a few weeks back, and the book has been wending its way to me ever since. Ruins of Ivy, which is a sort of far future post-apocalyptic thing, I think. And he was very kind to send me a copy, which I'll get around to at some point, but it'll go on my shelves in the meantime. And then on yesterday, I went to a different Oxfam bookshop in Wallingford this time, which is about 20-minute drive up the road towards Oxford. And I wasn't sure what to expect. They had a very small science fiction section, so it was almost a complete waste of time, except that they had, on their very stingy science fiction offering, they had a few hardbacks that I picked up. So this was the what's it called? Santa Roga Barrier by Frank Herbert. This is a first edition in the Rappan Whiting UK first edition hardback from 1970 something, 68 in fact, and it's in absolutely perfect condition. It's not at all. There's a little bit of spineling, maybe just a touch, but the text book is in good condition. There's a Mylar cover on the dust jacket, so that's in good condition. It's not at all. Maybe a tiny bit of bumping on the bottom, but only a very. You have to be very picky to be fussy about that, I think. But generally, it's in certainly fine arguably nearly mint condition. And they also had a book called Future Track 5 by Robert Westall. And I was intrigued by this because he also wrote a book called The Machine Gunners, which I read about, 15 times when I was at school. Yeah, Robert Westall has brilliantly created a future world which is all too plausible. With this major new novel by the author of The Machine Gunners and other stuff, we're proud to welcome one of the most exciting contemporary children's writers onto the Kestrel list for the first time. I couldn't quite work out if this particular book is a children's story or not. It doesn't sound like it. Henry Kitson makes his first mistake when he scores 100% in his exams, maybe then. Not for him, therefore, the glamorous, cushy career pattern of most of his contemporaries. Promoted to tech, he's equipped with a white coat and a clipboard and becomes one of that small body who keep the country's computerised living systems going. His second mistake is going on the razzle in London, where survival depends on skill and daring and the population is controlled by fear and sensationalism. Kitson becomes pinball champion and meets blonde, leather-clad Kerry, London's bike racing champion at Future Track 5. So I don't know what that is, if it's a children's book or if it's young adult or, full-on grown-up science fiction. I have no idea. But I like the sound of it, and I was tickled by the fact that it was by the guy that wrote Machine Gunners. And then they also had Bone Silence by Alistair Reynolds, which I do have I have that trilogy, the Revenger trilogy, in paperback in a matching set. So now I will feel obliged to try to find them in hardback. But I'm in no rush. I've got them. I've read them. They were fun. Slightly young adult tinged, perhaps, but only in as far as they have a relatively young female protagonist. Protagonists, actually. But I liked it. It's basically pirates in space with hints of alien takeover and lots of R-ing and shivering of the timbers in space. Not quite that, but not far off. I quite enjoyed it. And today, which is Saturday the 2nd of March, I went to my usual haunt, the Oxfam bookshop in Woodley, where I normally pop out on a Friday. I didn't have time yesterday.
So let's have a quick look. I looked at that last time, but it had a dent on the corner, which is a shame. I shall have a look at that. I think I've got Prox in there. That one's not in bad condition. I'll have a look. Maybe that one too. It looks more like horror than science fiction. I'll have a look. Fantasy. I have that at home. Maybe. It's a book club. These were all here last time. I have those in hardback. And these are not the edition that I want to collect. Horror. I've got a nicer copy of that and that. Don't have that. I do have the Thriller War. I've got a copy of Orsinian Tales. Stephen Gould I'll have a look at. These three I've got nicer copies of. I'll have to check Count-Zero. I think I've got that. Nova War I think I've got. I might have that as it's book 3, although it's in a different size. Not interested in the Spellsinger books. I have those. Right. I've got Ringworld, I've got Dream Park, and I have Footfall. I've got that edition. I've got Gateway, which I thought was a bit crap. Great books, but I have them in hardback. Hardback. Chisel. I don't have that. got that in hardback, otherwise I would buy it. Slim pickings today. Interesting. I'll have a closer look at the shelves.
And honestly, they didn't have a whole lot. I often walk away with an enormous bag of 30 or 40 books, but not this time. I came away with a modest kind of 8 or so. I found Jack Williamson, apparently published for the first time in paperback, Terraforming Earth. When a giant meteor crashes into Earth and destroys all life, the small group of human survivors manages to leave the barren planet. Well, hang on a minute. Either it destroyed all life or it didn't. How can there be survivors? Make your mind up. Manages to leave the barren planet and establish a new home on the moon. From Tycho base, men and women are able to observe the devastated planet and wait for a time when return will become possible. Blah, blah, blah. Generations pass. Clone children have had children of their own, and their eyes are raised towards the giant planet in the sky, which long ago was the cradle of humanity. Finally, after millennia of waiting, the descendants of the original refugees travel back to a planet they've never known to try and rebuild a civilization of which they've never been a part. Which sounds like, a lot like, the final third of Seven Eves by Neil Stevenson. I don't know when this was written, but basically on the basis that it's Jack Williamson, potentially quite a long time ago. Well, what the hell? 2001 this was written. I assumed it was from ages ago. I would have thought he was dead by then, but apparently not, unless it's a different Jack Williamson. I found a nice John Wyndham. It's a bit spine-faded and a bit beaten up, but I don't have a copy of this at all. And I remember reading these short stories when I was a younger chap and really enjoying them. So it's John Wyndham's Jizzle. Which has, let's see, there's a monkey with a unique artistic talent, a man living his life over again, a tube in the rush hour that was so crowded, that's a subway train to you Americans, the tube in the rush hour was so crowded that it seemed like hell. In fact, it was hell. I remember that one. That freaked me out when I was a kid. Sit back and enjoy these fragments from beyond the edge of reason and keep looking behind you. What I most remember about that is the cover, which is awesome. Aforementioned tube train there. I found a Werner Vinge, Rainbow's End, which is a slightly dull cover. Feverishly entertaining next-gen tech thriller, apparently. Well, that's got such a long blurb on it, I can't be bothered to read it. Google it, you'll find it. And then one of Connie Willis's 4 time travel novels. This one is To Say Nothing of the Dog. So I read, what are they called? Blackout and All Clear, and really love them. So I'm intrigued to go into this one. This one's a totally different format. It's a US format, but never mind. Ned Henry is badly in need of rest. He's been shuttling between the 21st century and the 1940s, searching for a Victorian atrocity called the Bishop's Bird Stump. It's part of a project to restore the famed Coventry Cathedral, destroyed by a Nazi air raid over 100 years earlier. But then Verity Kindle, a fellow time traveller, inadvertently brings back something from the past. Now Ned must jump back to the Victorian era to help Verity put things right, not only to save the project, but to prevent altering history itself. There's a lot of preventing altering history going on in these books, I found. But I quite liked it, actually, so I'm intrigued by that. And the other one, I think the other 4th one is Doomsday, maybe. And they also had Colin Wilson, The Philosopher's Stone, which is the same title as the first of the Harry Potter books, of course, but they are unrelated. I think, is this a novel? I think it is. Howard Newman is an unconventional scientist whose research, he believes, shows him the way to immortality. A unique brain operation intended to intensify his willpower suddenly reveals an ability to see the past, to envision scenes, people, places as remote as the mysterious origins of Stonehenge and the lost continent of Mu. But something goes terribly wrong, of course it does. A bizarre, malevolent force obstructs his penetration of antiquity. Something has drawn a blind on time. That sounds intriguing. I've heard good things about Colin Wilson. I found a William Gibson in this livery, which you find in the UK. I've got a few books in this livery. I thought I had this one already, but I do not, or at least it's not on my magic spreadsheet, so I'll be annoyed to find I've already got it if I have. I haven't actually checked my shelf yet. Well, that's good. From a quick glance at my shelves, I do not have it. So yes, Count Zero in a quite a leery green cover. This will be cyberpunk, of course. A masterly peek into the computer-obsessed electronic global ghetto, narrated in a futuristic, slang-enriched vocabulary. This sounds like a good day. Turner woke up in a new body with a beautiful woman beside him. I'll leave the rest to your imagination. I found a Joe Haldeman, Worlds. It's not in terribly good condition, but I was intrigued enough on reading the blurb at the back to give it a crack. We've got, at last, man has reached the high frontier. Out in the orbiting worlds, the colonists live in full view of the stars and yet still preserve their links with the home world. But Earth is tearing itself apart, and soon the colonists must face the universe alone. Brilliant vision of mankind's future by the award-winning author of The Forever War. So I gather this is there's 3 books in this, what's the word? Trilogy, blimey. 3-book series, otherwise known as a trilogy. So I'm not sure what that's like. I've only read one, Haldeman, that was Forever War, which was, of course, excellent. And then the last one I found in the Oxfam bookshop in Woodley was this one, which looks more like a horror/thriller, but it's by Max Brooks, who was the author of World War Z, which I really like. I like the book and I like the movie, even though the movie is a bit disjointed. But I've read the book a couple of times and seen the movie, I don't know how many times. I like it. So I don't know what this one is called. Devolution. Let's see. Facts are supposed to banish monsters, not invite them in. As the ash and chaos from Mount Rainer's eruption swirled and finally settled, the story of the Green Loop massacre passed unnoticed, unexamined until now. So that does sound like a thriller. It doesn't sound like anything even remotely science fiction-y. It's a survival horror tale, according to the inner flap. So I really got it just on the strength of it being by Max Brooks and him having written World War Z, which I really like. How are we doing? You still with me? I've got a pile of books here, which won't take very long to get through, of books that I've ordered online that have arrived at my house in the last week or two. I've got a David Webber, In Fury Born, in hardback. I thought I'd ordered this in hardback a week or two back and it arrived in paperback, so out of spite I've ordered it again, and this time it is in fact a hardback. And I couldn't work out if this is in the same universe as Honor Harrington. If it isn't, it sounds a lot like it. I don't think it is, but same meat, different gravy, female protagonists, lots of military crash bang, space battles and so on, which are a guilty pleasure for me, so I'm happy to get that. Allegedly it's pretty good from somebody who likes that kind of thing. And then I've got a couple more Adam Roberts. I think this is the 12th book of his that I have out. There's about 20 in total, maybe a bit more. What's it called? By Light Alone. Another really nice cover. Which, let's see, in a world where we've been genetically engineered so that we can photosynthesize, easy for me to say, sunlight with our hair. Well, I wouldn't do very well there, would I? Mind you, if we can be genetically engineered that we can photosynthesize through our hair, then perhaps we can be genetically engineered to cure male pattern baldness as well. That would be nice. With our hair, hunger is a thing of the past, food and indulgence. The poor grow their hair, the rich affect baldness, so maybe I'm just rich, and flaunt their wealth by still eating. But other hungers remain. The young daughter of an affluent New York family is kidnapped, no ransom demands are made, and a year later a girl arrives at the family home claiming to be their long-lost daughter. She has changed so much, she has lived on light. Can anyone be sure that she has truly come home? And in the city there are rumours of revolution. So again, he's taken a very straightforward premise. We can sustain ourselves through our hair, and which is quite the idea, and then run with it. So on the back of the 2 or 3 of his books that I've read, he's fast becoming a favourite. And then I had to work pretty hard to find this online. It's Gradasil by Adam Roberts, again, a chunkier book than he typically writes. This was published in, it's one of his early-ish books in 2006, so 5 or 6 years after he was first published. And for some reason, it's quite expensive to buy and not very easily available. The one that I found was described as new. It is in very nice condition. The dust jacket is not damaged, but the text block is pretty yellow. I don't know how well you can see that. And a little bit foxed as well. Anyway, whatever. I mean, I say expensive. It was £8 or £9 or something. So not hideously unreasonable. I got Terraformers by Annalee Newitz. A recent book, I think, published in 22 maybe, or possibly even 23. Let's see. Yeah, last year, 2023, is apparently an uplifting and illuminating exploration of the future. Destry's life is dedicated to terraforming Sask-E. As part of the environmental rescue team, she cares for the planet and its burgeoning ecosystems as her parents and their parents did before her. But the bright, clean future they're building comes under threat when Destry discovers a city full of people that shouldn't exist, hidden inside a massive volcano. As she uncovers more about their past, Destry begins to question the mission she's devoted her life to and must make a choice that will reverberate through Sask-E's future for generations to come. This is a salutary lesson and A Cautionary Tale. Even I was in Waterstones with my daughter, and she was nagging me to buy her a book. And I thought, if I'm buying her a book, I'm going to buy myself one as well, because that's how it works, right? And I saw this on the table of recently issued paperbacks, and I did pick it up. I almost bought it, but then I thought, I wonder how much I can find the hardback for online. And I looked for it, and I found a hardback for basically the same price, secondhand, but for basically the same price as the new paperback. So I thought I'd spin the wheel of online book roulette and see what came. And it's fine, apart from the fact that it's really crunched on the bottom, which might have happened when it landed on my doormat, because they don't really protect them very well. But it has the look of being slightly water damaged. So it serves me right. I should have just bought the paperback. And done Waterstones and the author more of a favour, but nonetheless, it's in okay, perfectly readable condition. It's not that bad. I mean, it's just a bit rumpled on the bottom. And then I've got James Smythe, another author that I'm busy collecting that I haven't read any of yet, so I ought to correct that before I go too much further. I do have the first of the Anomaly Quartet on my TBR pile for this month, so I'll soon see if he clicks with me or not. I was taken as much as anything else by the cover of this, which is very nice, very colourful. This is in the Bantam Press. Published some time back, let's see, in 2018. So this set 25 odd years ago, 1997. 17-year-old Laura Bow has invented a rudimentary artificial intelligence and named it Organon. At first, it's intended to be a sounding board for her teenage frustrations, a surrogate best friend, but as she grows older, Organon grows with her. And as the world becomes a very different place, technology changes the way we live, love, and die. Massive corporations develop rival intelligences to Laura's, ones without safety barriers or morals, and Laura is forced to decide whether to share her creation with the world. If it falls into the wrong hands, she knows, its power could be abused. But what if Organon is the only thing that can stop humanity from hurting itself irreparably? Powerful tale of love, loss, and hope. A frightening, heartbreakingly human look at where we are now, who we are now, and who we can be if only we allow ourselves. I still dream. So this is an artificial intelligence thing. And then I found, I didn't find it, I searched for it online and easily found it. Chris Beckett's Daughter of Eden. So I have Dark Eden, which is the first of the trilogy, in paperback. And instead of just buying the matching set, which is probably what I should have done, I looked for and found a month or two back Mother of Eden as the second book in hardback, and then I found Daughter of Eden in hardback too, which now means that I've got to find the first one, Dark Eden, in hardback too, and you can get it, but it's blooming expensive, so there probably weren't very many of them issued. This is in essentially as new condition. It's pretty much perfect. A little bit of bumping on the bottom of the DJ there, but nothing too traumatic. I really liked Dark Eden. I read it a couple of months ago, and I must get stuck into the second one actually. And then I've got a few Paul McAuleys after that. So I've got this in a large trade paperback in essentially as new condition, but I thought I'd look for it in the hardback. And what came when I spun the roulette wheel, I kind of lost this time around. It's a very spine-leany, very kind of mucky ex-library book in slightly kind of flaccid condition. It looks like it's been borrowed a number of times, although the borrowing slip isn't in the book. So that's a little bit disappointing. The trade paperback that I already have is actually a nicer book than this, but you win some, you lose some. Serves me right for trying to find a book for £3 or £4. And then I found In the Mouth of the Whale, which again is a theme developing here. I already have in paperback. This also has a bit of spine, but not as bad, and it's otherwise in much better condition than the previous one. And this, I think, is the third or fourth in I think it's the Quiet War series. There are 3 or 4. And then in the same series is Evening's Empires, book 4, I think, of the Quiet War series. And this dates from 2013, and In the Mouth of the Whale dates from, doesn't say. I suspect that that page of the book has been ripped out by the library for some reason. Anyway, whatever. Maybe it was a remaindered stock or something. In the Mouth of the Whale and Evening's Empire, matching books. Lovely jubbly. And then I also have The Secret of Life by Paul McAuley, which is a Mars expedition. So a Chinese expedition finds microbial life deep under Mars's polar cap and secretly brings it back to Earth. Probably an error, isn't it? Chinese biotech companies want to exploit the extraordinary potential of this tough ancient life, but industrial espionage leads to the escape of a genetically altered version, the Qi, into the Pacific Ocean. Able to adapt and change at high speed, the Qi's ever-mutating, fast-growing slick is threatening ecological meltdown. Microbiologist Dr. Mariella Anders finally realizes her ambition to travel to Mars, famous for having discovered the infective agent behind the Moses Plague, but her uncompromising attitude has made her plenty of enemies, not least the expedition's self-appointed leader, Penn Brown. She soon discovers political expediency, ruthless commercial manipulation, and Penn Brown's vested interests not only compromise scientific truth, but threaten the expedition's survival. And she learns that while discovering the secret of the chi is hard enough, knowing what to do with it is even harder. Gripping near-future thriller for the age of the genome, blending the wonder of classic science fiction with the terrifying implication of biotech. And that was published in 2001, so towards the beginning of his career. So Paul McAuley is another British author that I think I've read one book by his, which was a recent one, so I've been gradually kind of adding to my collection over time. Is that the right way up? Yeah. And there are 4 more chunky hardbacks to add to my shelves. Talking of which, I am now officially out of space. I've got a bit more wall space to add some shelves to, but otherwise I've not got much in the way of shelf space. I think I'm almost getting to the point now where I need to do a bit of a shelf audit and get rid of some books that I'm maybe never going to read, like the 25 Anne McCaffrey Perm books, for example. I may keep the first 3 for posterity, but bin off the rest. Anyway, that's a story for another day. That's been quite a long haul video, apologies, but hopefully you enjoyed that. And as always, thank you for watching, and until next time, goodbye for now.